I think fundamentally it's being a good human. I mean, it's building an environment that you want to work in and live in, and treating your employees with respect and giving them autonomy and sort of judging them on their delivery of what their job is and not how specifically they do it.
Are you a scaling SaaS founder?
Ready to make the leap from leading a team to leading an organization? Join us each week as we refill your think tank with actionable tips and strategies from great business minds you know and those who don't know yet. This is SaaS Fuel with your host, 5-time entrepreneur, SaaS founder, and globetrotting adventurer, Jeff Maines.
Welcome back to the SaaS Fuel podcast, where remote teams connect like stars in a constellation. Each one shines on its own, but together they form something amazing. I'm your host, Jeff Maines. I help B2B SaaS founders like you grow from traction to scale. Here, growth is more than just numbers. It's about crafting a future-proof company, premium valuation, and leaders who build a business of significance while living epic, adventurous lives. Today, we're diving into one of the biggest puzzles facing modern leaders, and that is how to build a connected, high-performing team when everyone's working from, anywhere, everywhere. Leading remote teams isn't just about Zoom calls and Slack messages. It's about creating a culture where people feel seen, valued, and engaged no matter the miles in between. We'll explore proven strategies to keep teams aligned, maintain morale, and build a culture that excels even in a distributed world. From meaningful check-ins to fostering collaboration across time zones, this episode is packed with insights to help you lead with impact even from a distance. So here's a question to think on. How do you inspire trust and camaraderie in a team that's never even met in person? We'll find out from today's guest. Ready to future-proof your company and scale to new heights? Dive into the ultimate resource designed for SaaS founders and C-suite executives. Champion Leadership Group gives you an unfair advantage in scaling up revenue and outwitting competitors. Imagine solving your biggest scaling headaches and hitting 5, 10, 20 million ARR and beyond with ease. We take away the guesswork and the grunt work and replace it with framework by supporting you with our on-demand fractional C-suite team, a powerful operating system built into software, and a thriving community of fellow scaling founders. That's how we make it happen. Our expert guest last week was Leslie Shreve, founder of Productive Day and creator of Taskology, the system that can unlock more hours in your day, cutting through the task overload and transforming your inbox into a productivity ally. Now, if you've ever dreamed of wrapping up your day with a clear head and a shorter to-do list, Leslie's insights are exactly what you need. The episode could definitely be the game changer you've been waiting for. Every leader I know needs this, including myself. And our founder on Tuesday was Kamal Maheshwari, co-founder of DCube, 28-year data veteran. We unpacked the critical importance of data trust in AI, covering everything from data accuracy and transparency to the real risk of poor quality data in decision making. If you're relying on AI-driven insights, and so many companies are these days, this episode might reveal gaps in your data strategy that you didn't know you had. My guest today is Sam Rosen, co-founder and CEO of DeskPass, a groundbreaking SaaS platform and marketplace that offers flexible access to thousands of co-working spaces nationwide. A true pioneer in the co-working movement, Sam combines his experience as a co-owner of Chicago's first co-working space with his expertise in design and problem solving. He's here to share unique insights into remote work, culture, current workspace trends, and the future of flexible work strategies, along with his experience as a SaaS founder. Welcome, Sam Rosen. Hey, Sam, welcome to SaaS Fuel.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks for having me.
Well, you've been at the forefront of the co-working movement for like a decade now, so really early in the process. And how has the concept of co-working evolved since you launched DeskPass? And what are some of the surprising trends?
Yeah, I have been doing this for a long time. I feel like in the industry of flexible work and co-working, I'm like a grandfather. And so it's been fun to see, evolution and change throughout the whole time that I've watched the industry. I think, fundamentally what the business does and the problem itself hasn't changed at all, right? It's like all about connecting people, building community, offering, a great place for people to work outside of traditional office or working from home. So I think, the quality of spaces, the scale of spaces, the number of spaces has changed incredibly. I think we had one of maybe the first 300 workspaces in the whole world that called itself Coworking. And now there are 7,000 in the United States, 30, 40,000 in the world. And it seems like every building's going to have one in the future. So seeing the acceptance of this model and people start to utilize it, from just like early adopter, bleeding edge folks to some of the biggest companies in the world and most progressive companies in the world, that has been quite a thing to experience.
Without a doubt. And it's something that we've seen really grow a lot. And especially in the last few years, I mean, everything went remote. And then now things are kind of somewhat back in office, but still very distributed. Is that kind of what you're seeing in the marketplace, or is it, is the return to office, impacted that at
Yeah,
all?
it's I've been doing this long enough that like, the cycles have been pitching people about flex and co-working and saying, you should try this. This would be great for your team. And people saying, no way, never gonna happen. We're never leaving this
Right.
office. This is where our books are. This is where our people are. This is where our water cool lives. This is us.
Yeah.
To, COVID really being a transformative accelerant and people saying, oh, actually, it's quite nice not to have to schlep to the office every day 45 minutes and when I can do
Yeah.
everything from home. So I think generally there's been an unbelievably fast uptake in the understanding and adoption from corporate America. And this isn't just America, right? This is all over the world that we can do
Right.
our work remotely. We can be productive remotely. At the same time, I think companies have really learned to understand the value of working together and sort of where and how that is best uh, kind of treated for their organization. I think what we're seeing as an outsider through DeskFest is every company is different: size, scale, industry, profession.
Yeah.
There's not a one size fits all solution like there was before. Now, to have a modern kind of workplace and office, you have to offer options and sort of an ecosystem of work. And that's what we've seen, I think, the best companies do really thrive at adapting to that.
Yeah. And thinking about adaptation, we went through a period where everybody was in the office. There was a lot of buzz around co-working, and then everybody is remote and not going into work. How did DeskPass fare through that, and how did you lead through that transition?
Yeah, so it's funny again, kind of having the time cycle to observe this long enough. The first problem was we're never going to use spaces. Work from home. We use other spaces. When
Right.
COVID hit and everybody went home, I was getting this counter argument, which is we're never going into the office again. Why would anyone use even a co-working space when I have a really nice office? I
Yeah.
think ultimately. For us, we've always kind of taken the long approach here and expected behavior was going to change. I think we didn't realize how long that behavior change would have taken without something like a COVID, because that really did accelerate, but it accelerated something that seemed inevitable. So for our business, when COVID hit, we had to hunker down. We lost 75% of our business in about 3 weeks. Um,
Wow.
but our best customers hung around and supported us and really helped us through. And we realized it was time to double down because it was clear to us that this would ultimately be an accelerant. So for us, we switched from really focusing on individuals to figuring out how we can best serve teams and organizations that we knew on the other side of this we're going to have to re-examine the office. They're going to have to re-examine their relationship to leased space versus home space versus flexible space. So we tried to be a partner, be an early supporter to allow companies optionality and really understand what these spaces are and how they can use them and not tell them what to do, but give them tools to figure it out themselves.
And just for the gravity of that, just for the listeners, think about that: 75% of revenue gone inside a month. I mean, it's just that's mind blowing. How do you deal with that as a leader in your team and managing that? And then really, yeah, I love what you said just about the vision of doubling down and really seeing that vision going forward. What goes through your mind? How do you deal with that as a leader to do that and keep your team engaged and really sell that vision?
Yeah. I mean, look, it sucks. Like there's no
Yeah,
there's no easy way around that. I felt like we were really hitting our stride. We were starting to see sort of exponential growth at that moment. And
yeah,
then, I mean, when you look back at the graphs, it's like, wow. Um,
wow,
for us, we really believe in what we sell. Like we really believe in the future. The future of what we saw and I saw 10 years ago is inevitable. And we actually thought we were really, really well positioned to take advantage of the change. So for us, I think first of all, obviously in a moment like that, like it's a pandemic and like selling fractional office seems like small potatoes compared to like a world and like a
yeah,
societal and world issue. So like I think we always just have perspective and say like this isn't life or death, and that was really helpful. For us, we had customers that really believed in us, and we had investors that really believed in us. So it was going to them and being honest and being kind of clear about the future. And I think at that point at the beginning, no one knew the scale and gravity of is this a couple of weeks? Is this a few months? Is this sort of like a fundamental change that's never we're never going to recover from? And we just knew that what we sell and sold had more value in this future world. And I think articulating that vision to the people who cared and understood the dynamics was the most important job for us. And we kept building.
that's really good. I think it just speaks to your leadership and the team engagement and really them buying into the vision of the company. That they really rally around that and say we're working through this.
Uh,
Really kind of united and engaged. How do other founders get that from their teams when they are working with people who are remote? And how do we keep them engaged and really feeling like they're part of the organization, part of the team? Even when we're not close together
yeah.
physically.
I mean, there's lots of tactics that we use at our company to try to cultivate the culture and the community and sort of the connection. And I'd be happy to talk about some of those in more detail. I think fundamentally, it's being a good humans. I mean, it's building an environment that you want to work in and live in, and treating your
I
employees
like that.
with respect and giving them autonomy and sort of judging them on their delivery of what their job is and not how specifically they do it. I think we that's always been key for us to build culture is be good people and treat people like good people. And I think there's a lot of respect that gets created. Also, transparency. I think as a
Mm,
CEO or as someone who leads a company in moments of uh, when you're confused or when things aren't going right or when things aren't going, just the way you're looking, um, there's an instinctual, I think for a lot of founders and entrepreneurs, there's an instinct to hide or to sort of uh, remove those optics or sort of that understanding from your team and just protect them and
mm,
figure it out all on your own. I think for us and through our ups and downs, what we've learned is in those sort of ups and downs, transparency is really crucial. And if you are upfront and honest with your team about what's going on and they can prepare for it and they're not surprised by what happens, it actually creates this level of trust and flexibility that you get from them because they know they can trust you and you're not going to screw them over and they can prepare themselves if things are on the horizon and they have to adapt and change. So that's always been really, really crucial to us in a remote setting because we don't see everybody all the time, is just making sure that they know that they're heard, making sure that we're clearly communicating what we see and what's going on, and meeting people where they're at.
Yeah, so important.
Yeah.
But your model is a little bit different. Any of the other competitors in the marketplace, I mean, some of the names that people know, some that they don't. I mean, big Netflix series on WeWork, We Crashed.
Heard of them.
And that happened, before all the craziness in the world as well. But your model is very different.
Yeah.
And so tell me about some of the differences between what kind of the traditional co-working model is and DeskPass.
Yeah, I mean, for folks that have never heard of DeskPass, just to explain it really quickly so there's some context, is we sell basically three things. We sell desks by the day, meeting rooms by the hour, and private offices by the day, week, month to month. So most people and companies think of us as a solution for like month to month or less, right? So I need a meeting space for a week. I need a private office for a few months or maybe through the end of the year. I need a desk for the day. That's really where we thrive, and that's really what we focus on. And we sell this directly to individuals. So you can be in your market, and let's say you live in Tulsa and you need a workspace in Tulsa. You could say, I need a meeting room in downtown Tulsa Thursday for 8 people. And we want to find that space for you and make it really easy to book it. Um, but it's across a network of workspaces. So unlike a WeWork or a Regus or another one single brand, we aggregate lots of different operators in your given market. And often that means, aside from some of the big guys, you get local operators, community operators, people that actually like are building a space intentionally in the community near you, which I think is at least the type of space that I really enjoy. And it also
Yeah.
means we have spaces closer to Main Street. We have close spaces in rural communities and smaller markets on top of big cities, which is unique about our platform. So we'll sell this to you as an individual, and you say, I need that meeting room, and we want to book it for you and make it the best, most seamless experience possible. But what we do and what we're focused on is working with companies. So all these companies that sort of in this new world of work recognize they're going to it is smart of them to offer workplace flexibility and options outside of home and HQ. They can put their company and their team on DeskPass, and then they can manage who's got access to what, when, where, and they have one consolidated bill and one consolidated report to like learn what's going on, because I think most companies, this is new and they actually don't know how people are going to use this. So that's what DeskPass does. It's a marketplace that sells to individuals and teams all these awesome co-working spaces across the world. And what makes it unique about us is we're pay as you go. So you just pay for what you buy. Because we work with all these operators, we have thousands and thousands and thousands of spaces in little markets and little locations closer to where you live. And that allows us to kind of grow our network much quicker than a traditional like brick and mortar franchise operator.
I think that's a brilliant concept, just the marketplace idea, because there's inventory out there, there's space that needs to be utilized, and every day that space is empty, then operators are losing money. And then you've got people who need space temporarily, short term, those kinds of things, and bringing those people together, I think is absolutely brilliant. I think last time I looked, it was like 260 some odd cities, 22 countries. I mean, it's pretty much anywhere that you want to have a meeting, anywhere you want to have
Yeah.
an office and a presence, you're there.
And we work with companies. So a company might say, God, like we really need a space in Hamburg, Germany. Or we really need, right now, we have a company that needs a location in Grand Cayman, and so it's like, we'll go out there
I want
and
to go check
we'll,
that one out.
yeah, it's actually called the White House. It's a very funny
Ah,
space, the one that I found. But we can actually help procure and network these spaces together in one platform. But I think, Jeff, what you said is really important on two levels. One is, what we're selling is perishable. If this booth I'm in today is empty, I'm not making any money or revenue from it. I'm not bringing people into my space and my community. And the next day I can't resell. I don't have an inventory of yesterday's office, right? So we
right.
help operators monetize empty space. And I think that's really cool and helpful. And the other piece that's really interesting is if you kind of go one order of magnitude up, um, the office is changing, right? And we have an unbelievable amount of offices in this world, office buildings. And I could tell you when I started going into the space 15 years ago, they were mostly empty most of the day or night. So these offices in general have never been like a highly utilized asset class. It just sort of worked. The economics worked for banks and people and landlords. But what's happening now is those offices are even less utilized than they were before.
Yeah.
And so there's an opportunity to create these flexible, short-term available desks and meeting rooms and offices in every office building in the world. And our job at DeskPass is to help kind of wire that up and make that accessible to Jeff or one of whoever's listening to this today, right? And it's a really cool opportunity because the scale of office we have in this world is insane. And it's one of the biggest asset classes that we have.
Yeah. I think you're right. It is changing, and the old model doesn't work anymore. I mean, my SaaS company, when we were looking at, what do we do? Our lease came up for renewal, and the first thought was we don't need an office anymore. And then it was kind of, well, we sort of do, and so we ended up downsizing, staying in the same building. Next time it comes up, I think maybe something more flexible makes more sense because things really are changing, but we do need space. We just don't need it all the time.
Yeah, and I harp on this a lot. Like when I think of it, the transformation that's happening is what I call office as an ecosystem. And it's this
Yeah.
this notion that I don't think the HQ is going anywhere, but it's like, why do we need this space? And how much space do we actually need? Is this space
Yes.
for work, like our employees coming to work every day? Is this space to meet and gather? Is this space to sell? Is this space for research and development? And what I think you're seeing across the board when you talk to brokers is that people are taking about half as much space as they used to.
Yeah.
And they're getting
Yeah.
as much work, and that space is, because it's more affordable now, is more intentional. If it's a research and development lab, let's make it awesome, but smaller. Let's let our employees work where they get their best work done and support them along the way. So if that means sometimes I work at home, let's make it great. If that means I need a workspace like the co-working space I'm at today because I got two young kids and I need a place to focus or talk on an interview, let me support my employees in offering that too. So Office is just becoming more thoughtful, more of an ecosystem, and traditional real estate and office, like you said, I feel like is getting smaller as part of that
Yeah.
ecosystem.
Yeah. So in co-working, when you first started pitching this idea, it is different than the other ones because they will go and they'll set up a location, they sign long-term leases, and now it's their space, and they've got to figure out how to get that space leased. Where you're just the marketplace. So you're working with them, you're working with landlords, you're working with buildings, you're working with individuals and teams, kind of bringing them together. Was this something that was like completely foreign to them when you first started pitching it, or was it something that they really caught the vision of immediately and said, this is what we want to do? Yeah.
I think, we're a marketplace model. So there's the supply side and there's the demand side. The supply side has always been a much easier proposition and sale for our business. There are lots of analogs for what we do. Airbnb,
Sure.
booking.com, right? So like the notion of a marketplace is not a new concept and a foreign concept. And especially if you're a little guy with one location or a handful of locations, the network effect that you can offer being paired with other spaces is a value add compared to like one large operator that has 2,000 spaces. So I think the supply side has always been a pretty easy value proposition. It's you have empty space, let us fill it up and give you money for it. And we're seeing a lot more spaces just organically over since we've started. So there's just a natural
Yeah.
organic growth. Um, the demand side has always been the more challenging side because that's where I really think a lot of the education has to happen of what are these spaces? Why would I use them? And how do I fit them into my strategy? Which is when we started, there was no Harvard business case study or little book at the airport about this. And so people are really figuring it out for themselves and recognizing your SaaS companies might be different than my company. What we need is probably different. So it's not a one size fits all solution. How do we instrument this properly for our problems?
That makes a lot of sense. What were the challenges in building both sides of the marketplace? You said one side was easier than the other, but how did you go about doing that? Did you try to build one first? Did you build the demand side and then go look for the supply, or because that was easier? Or how did you approach it as a leader?
Yeah. I mean, I know you've been building businesses for a long time, so I feel like you can probably empathize here, but a lot of trial and error and a lot of
Oh,
um, pivoting and kind of learning. So my journey in this industry started by owning and operating a co-working space. And because my background is in design technology, I started building software to power my space and thought we could start selling that software. And through lots of interviews, lots of no's, lots of meetings, what we learned was the real value that we could create for this emerging industry wasn't um, fancy software to book desks, or create community or scheduling. It was how do you put butts in these seats? And once we started to realize that that's a problem that spaces all have and could use help with, we knew that we started to focus on that problem. When we started as a membership model. So we were inspired by ClassPass and
sure.
ClassPass. The just general, it was growing really quickly, and that model made a lot of sense. So we started in Chicago. And we said, now you can get access to all 25 spaces in Chicago for one membership. And
Wow.
it was very easy to sell that to the spaces, and the value proposition to the users was very clear. So it was easy. It was a much easier to sell that. And then we continued to kind of tweak and change that as we better understood our customers and the market. So we went from a membership model, which became more and more challenging to administer because the business matured and economics of the spaces changed, to, instead of selling one off, how do we really focus on teams and predominantly mid-market teams where we can, where we can sell groups of people opposed to one-off. So a lot of it has just been listening, talking to our customers as the market and the world changes, as running tests and adapting to what we learn.
Yeah, that's a powerful offer. Instead of just having one or having one co-working space access 35. I mean, that's a no-brainer. Who wouldn't sign up for that?
It was
And I like that.
hilariously easier to sell than the thing we were selling before. So I think we just, judge our success on how much easier it becomes to sell things with every, sort of advance in our product.
Yeah. I like that you evolve the model as well. So as you got to really understand and define your ICP, really, what is it that they want? What are they gonna, what's gonna resonate with them? What kind of offers? What problem are they looking to solve? I think the more you define that, you've continued to refine your offer to reflect not only what they want, but also who you want to work with. Your ideal who has gotten much tighter.
Yeah.
If you're stuck at your current revenue level, this is your ticket out. Feel like your company is the world's best kept secret? We amplify your success. And hey, if you're already crushing it but too busy to breathe, we got your back. We'll free up 20% of your time in the first month. Now is the time to upgrade from traction to scale. If you're ready to work smarter and not just grind harder, schedule a 10-minute growth brainstorm. It's free, and we'll pinpoint the number one thing blocking revenue. Visit championleadership.com. That's where leaders evolve and companies transform.
I think the other just general thing in our industry, which is interesting and unique, is we're not selling you, for most people, we're not selling you like a new toaster. like I already have a toaster, and this toaster like has convection and water vapor, and it's like, okay, I already have a toaster, I can compare it, and I bought one of these before. I mean, for most people, we're selling them like a whole new way to cook, and that requires education on a mass scale. So, you know, there are more people who search a WeWork every month than co-working as a search term. And the
Wow.
market, despite the ups and downs of WeWork, the market awareness that those guys and others in the industry and COVID have brought to the table has just made the general understanding that these places exist much more like pervasive in just like the average community. So part of it is nothing that we did, and it's just that the market had to learn and be educated, and that takes brute force.
Yeah. Is that something that that you've spent a lot of time on in educating the market, or is it kind of letting some of the bigger companies and their successes and failures kind of educate the market that this is out there, and then you come along and say, hey, this is an option
I,
that's a little bit different.
I think it's very hard, like on a mainstream level, to like sell a new concept of work and co-working and flexible
Expensive.
workspace. It's unbelievably expensive. It's not very efficient, and it's so what we found is Uber, when I had a co-working space, was one of my first customers, and they were a big customer of ours. And I used to ride in a lot of Ubers, and I did this test where I would ask every Uber driver, because at the beginning, especially, they were all very conversational, and they'd say, what do you do? And I'd say, I run a co-working business. And about everybody, I would say 8 or 9 out of 10 would next say, co what? Co what? That's what came next, right? I would
Yeah.
say we're at like 60% now say, oh, co-working. I know that that exists. There's still
Mm.
a huge amount of people who have no idea that this exists. And if I think of co-working, I probably think of WeWork, or I probably think of a space near me. So
Sure.
we're not necessarily educating people anymore that co-working exists, but when they search co-working in their market, we're educating them that a marketplace exists, and a way to look at that more than just this one space exists, and there are more ways to access these spaces than just a traditional membership. So that we're very effective at educating because we have a better value proposition than most individual co-working spaces. We can say we have more for less and less commitment, but that's the change. So we've really focused on how do we meet people where they're at and not try to like change the physics of what people are searching for and how they think about this. And then when we talk to them, educate them on why a tool like DeskPass is a better solution, which we
Yeah, it
can
makes
do.
a lot of sense. Yeah, taking them that last mile instead of having to start from the very, very beginning.
I think one of the things as an entrepreneur in this journey, because I've been in it for a long time, is about timing. Like, I am very grateful for the time and experience that I've had, but like, um, the first 5 years, I think, were almost impossible for anybody. So I think like waiting for the right market timing and the right moment, and for like a lot of the sort of chips to fall, um, is really critical in having successful outcomes. Being first is not always best.
Yes, yes. Yeah, it's you take a lot of arrows, I think, being first and spend a lot of money educating the market on this great idea. And sometimes it works, sometimes they're not profitable after 10, 12 years
Yeah,
and still take an investment.
yeah,
Yeah.
I feel that.
That's a tough place to be.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I mean, as an entrepreneur, I think there's always a lot of learning in whatever you do, win, lose, or draw. But that's been a really interesting revelation for me. Was we thought we had an advantage because we were first, and now in hindsight, as like the big conglomerates see the market opportunity and can learn from everyone's mistakes, you realize uh, it's a mixed bag.
Yes, yes. Are you starting to see more, landlords or building owners try and get into the co-working space game, and so they're, designating a certain amount of space or floors in their buildings, for short term?
Yeah. I mean, we started to see this before the pandemic, and this is just accelerating. In Flex, there's basically three predominant models. One is arbitrage. Like I'm an operator and I take a lease and I lease it for $20 a square foot and I sell it for $50 a square foot, but it's a traditional lease. Then you started to see a lot more of these management agreements. But again, it took a long time for landlords and banks to get comfortable with not 10-year, 5-year leases, and instead 1 month leases or month to month leases or year long leases. So you see these management agreements where a brand like Industrious is a great example of this. Pretty much all of the deals they do are partnerships with the landlord. So the landlord handles sort of the capital expense, and then they share in the operating expense, and then they share in the upside. So there's not the same downside. Like if the space is empty, you still have to pay rent, but there's a more distributed upside. And then you started to see landlords themselves get into this business. So I think one of my favorite examples is Tishman, which is preeminent U.S. landlord, especially in the tri-state region, and they have their own brand called Studio that they run, manage, operate in-house. And I think you're going to see a lot more of all three of those combinations. But what I think fundamentally you're seeing is every building, most buildings are going to have to offer some flexibility in their portfolio, in their building, because a company isn't going to want to have a desk for everybody that is employed. But 4 times a year, when they bring the whole company together, they want to be able to flex up. And the requirement of that is having those amenities and those facilities, or sort of that network available in the space. So I think that's exactly what you're going to see is you're going to see more and more flexible spaces and models as part of traditional office buildings.
I like that.
Me too.
Well, before DeskPass, you were involved in design, branding, and you talked a little bit about that. And yeah, how has that experience in design influenced your approach to building DeskPass and just kind of the unique experience for your members?
Yeah, I love this question. So thanks for asking, Ed. When I got interested in this space, I think my viewpoint was really coming from a design perspective and just like a problem solving perspective. Traditionally, people in office are either like real estate vets and they've come into the business to do real estate and practice real estate, and that's their lens, or they're like very finance driven. So they're, very numbers oriented. What I found from my perspective was there was a lot less attention on the human beings that work in these buildings and offices every day. And when you stop caring about the bank that finances the landlord, that has a contract with the company, which has management, which has its own sort of prerogative and perspective, and you go down to the actual human beings that use buildings and offices every day, it was pretty clear to see that like the experience didn't seem very optimized around those people. They seem very optimized around like money and the flow of money and the security of risk, but not like
Yeah.
what's Jeff's day like? Like, does Jeff have children? Is there traffic? How's the weather? What is Jeff working on today? Does it make sense for him to be in a quiet space or a loud place? Or would it be really helpful for him not to be in traffic for 2 hours? And that's, I think, been the perspective and vantage point that we've had from the beginning, which was really just, it was clear to see that like this whole thing is not optimized and set up around the humans and that use the space every day. And there was a lot of upside and opportunity to create better experiences for those people. And by putting them at the core of what we build and how we build it, we think we've sort of seen where the puck is going. You know what I mean? Like it's very
Yeah.
clear that like traditional office has not been a great setup for everybody forever. And as this paradigm has changed, uh, building and thinking about the end user and how you optimize around them, I think is what's going to win. And I think we've been able to see that early and thoughtfully because of that design and branding and just human experience point of view.
I like that. Yeah, really optimizing it around the person and the people. Very different approach.
Yeah,
Very
it took
different than
it
the
took me
traditional way.
forever to understand this notion that like there is this invisible architecture around an asset class like office, right? The bank or the pension fund that's investing in the building, right? Like the ownership of the building is looking for long-term secured leases because that's what they need to go to a bank with because that the bank will finance the building. So what they're looking
Right.
for are Walgreens, or maybe not Walgreens right now, but like Amazon and Facebook and Microsoft,
Yeah.
because that contract is gold to a bank. And these ownership groups are pension funds and they're teachers unions and they're like giant global REITs, and changing the paradigm from a 5-year lease to Sam needs a conference room for 4 hours, but it's $1,000, is an unbelievable change. And there's so much like hidden architecture that you don't understand or don't see by just being like a design guy going into a new industry that took a long time to understand. That's what you're seeing changing now, is you're seeing
Yeah.
banks realize these offices are empty and this building is upside down. So we either have to change how we think about this or value this, or like we're screwed.
And if you look at the unit economics, $1,000 for a day for a conference room, outstanding compared
Totally,
to your normal rent per square foot.
totally. Yeah, but it's the bank risk of
Yeah.
okay, that one time $1,000 versus $4,000 over a year that I can trust and have a
Yeah.
strong contract behind.
Yeah. Oh, that's exactly right. Well, as companies are looking at solutions like DeskPass, I mean, how do they empower their employees to make smart choices about where they work? And what role do you think choice plays in employee satisfaction and retention?
Uh, I think it's paramount to the future of talent. Uh, as more and more jobs and work becomes automated, the high performing people who can really create change and create value for a company are going to become more and more important and more valued. And if I'm looking at two different companies that offer the same pedigree, the same salary, the same benefits, and one says, I need an office 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, and the other one says, I don't really care. Sometimes you have to come to the office because we have meetings and there's times where we have to meet, but like just get your work done. And as long as you do that, like I don't care where you work. It's very clear through research that employees put a lot of value and a lot of weight on that. I mean, as much as a significant amount of their salary. So I think to recruit the best people and retain the best people, workplace flexibility is a really, really important piece. Now, with most companies, they don't know what their employees want. And I use this stupid metaphor, but it's like forever I had you know, a a little light switch in my office, which was go to work, go to home, go to work, go to home. And
Yeah.
what I think companies are doing is they're coming into people's houses and they're replacing it with a dimmer and saying, how much work do you like? How much light do you need? And no one's had a dimmer before. So they might think they want to work 3 days a week at the office or one day or 0 days but they don't know. And
Yeah.
the power of a platform like DeskFest is it's giving people tools to try, to learn. If they don't use it, it doesn't cost them anything. If they use it, it creates great value to your employees. And as an employer, you can learn what your employees actually want, and you can build a longer term strategy around them and not what you think they want or even what they think they want, but actually what they use and need and utilize and want. And I think that's where most companies are, is they realize, oh shit, we need something. And that's
Yeah.
where they're at. They don't know what yet.
Yeah. They know they need something. They don't know what.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's exactly right.
So how is the whole return to work thing? How has that affected DeskPass? What are you seeing in the marketplace? What are you hearing in employee happiness or retention? Or is that something that return to work somewhere, not necessarily in a centralized location?
Again, I think every company is different, and every company we talk to has handled this different. And that's the biggest change, is it's not one to many. It's not one solution is going to work for everybody. I don't think I remember a long time ago when Yahoo made all this news because they were like, everyone get back to the office. And that was like
Right.
the big uproar in my industry. And my take was, I don't know what's right for Yahoo. Maybe that's
Yeah.
exactly what Yahoo needs. Maybe it's BS, but I don't know. And so you see all these narratives and stories about big companies driving more folks back to the office. For us, we sell Office, so we're all for it. Like more
Yeah.
people getting out is better for us. But I think every company is thinking about this different. I frankly think a lot of companies, big companies, are using this return to work as an excuse to cut their workforce, where they're basically
Yeah.
saying, you have to come to the office because they know there's a percentage of their people that are going to say, no way. And that's an easy way to sort of to slim things down. So I think they're using it kind of as a veil or an excuse. But even in those companies, like you see that when you actually like parse in, most companies are saying to their executives or their engineers or their high value employees, like, no, actually, like just you can work from where you need to work. Like, I don't want to lose you. And that's what I think we'll
Yeah.
see more and more of.
So what do you think that the future looks like? What is the future of work? Is it all together? Is it individual? Is it does it stay distributed? Collaborating together.
Yeah.
What do you think it looks like?
So we're humans, and I think most of us crave community. We
Yeah.
crave being with other people, and that's a critical part of how we approach the universe and get through our life and our days. So I think that is a fundamental human need, and that's not going anywhere. I think technology, as it gets much better to do virtual meetings and like is going to augment some of that, but there's really nothing that can take the place of breaking bread with somebody or sitting in front of them and being able to really read their cues and their body language. So
Yeah.
I think that's not going anywhere. I think, again, as a design dude, what do I see? I see more people enjoying their lives, being able to build a work schedule that is more built around their families and their community and their happiness. I see less waste, less people driving and in their pickup truck to work and waste, burning fuel just to sit alone or work on their computer all day. So ultimately,
Yeah.
I see a society that is happier and companies that are healthier and more communities that thrive because people can spend more time.
I like that. Where can people learn more about you and about DeskPass online?
So deskpass.com, I'm Sam at deskpass.com. I'm pretty accessible, but like I said, Jeff, we help companies from like the federal government to little tiny companies think about this. So for us, if even if we're not the right solution for you, but you're thinking about this problem, you have this problem, you want to talk to somebody that can maybe point you in the right direction or help you along the way, like I'm easy to find.
Outstanding. We'll make sure to link that in the show notes.
Thank you, sir.
Sam, such a great conversation. Thanks for being on SaaS Fuel.
It's a pleasure, man. I really appreciate the time.
Thanks again, Sam, for coming on the show and sharing your journey and insights. I love the flexibility that DeskPass offers. And I don't know another company that has the same reach in so many different markets. I mean, it's a very, very cool concept. Well, you can learn more about Sam and DeskPass at deskpass.com. And as always, all links, highlights, resources, and full show notes are available at saasfuel.com. And be sure to check us out on YouTube as well. It's at Champion Leadership. We have full episodes, video shorts, training, outtakes, quite a bit more out there for you. Thought leaders share. Share this episode with someone you know who has remote team members. That's not hard to find these days. Everyone who shares this week gets a desk on demand backpack. Just pull a string and a mini desk, chair, and solar powered laptop charger. Pop out, ready for work wherever you are. Because, who needs a cubicle when you can set up shop in the park? Or maybe DeskPass is a better option for that. We'll come back this Thursday on our SaaS Fuel Expert series as Joanna Zhang, the business system multiplier, reveals how she helps entrepreneurs build star support teams and create systems that scale. Don't miss her insights on empowering team dynamics and setting the boundaries that keep your business running smoothly, even when key players are out. And our founder next week is Alex Quilici, founder and CEO of Umail. He'll talk about how a B2C play grew into a massive B2B opportunity and how both sides of the business feed each other. Way cool story. Plus, how his team is using AI to protect consumers, transform data privacy, and support carriers in the fight against robocalls. And that is such a great business. I will see you next time. And as always, enjoy the journey.
Thanks for listening to SaaS Fuel. Full show notes for each episode, which includes a summary, key takeaways, quotes, and any resources mentioned, are available at saasfuel.com. Be sure to follow and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you're enjoying the content and getting value from these episodes, please leave us a rating and review at ratethispodcast.com/saasfuel. We'll be sure to read these out on future episodes.